Oh man, this one's gonna be a good one. All right, in today's video, what I wanted to talk to you, let me get my mic right. What I wanted to talk to you about is the 4 different social or just general anxiety types that most people feel, what the symptoms are of it, because a lot of times anxiety isn't just feeling panicky. A lot of times anxiety is more in the head. And so the different symptoms of them, but also the antidotes to each anxiety. And as I go through this, I want you to take note of which ones you regularly feel, what your primary one is. Maybe you have a secondary or a third one. But most of the time people have a primary and secondary one. Work on your primary one first and then work on your secondary one. This is really powerful. This changed my life. A lot of this didn't come from me just making it up. It actually came from a book. Maybe I have it here. Maybe I don't. Let's see if I can find it. No, I cannot find. Oh, yeah, there we go. I believe it's, yeah, this one right here. Beating Shyness Workbook. This is super helpful. So if you guys want to go deeper into this, then just simply take a look at the Beating Shyness Workbook, because these are generally social anxiety types, but they can be applied to all all general anxiety types as a whole. So let's start off with the first one, which is emotional, which is what most people see as anxiety, right? This is when you're in a state of panic. You're freezing up, you're just kind of freaking out all the time, you're jittery. This is when you have emotional spilling. So what that means is you just have a bunch of emotions that are overwhelming and you can't identify which emotion you actually feel. It's just a clump of emotions going all together at the same time. This is imposter syndrome, feeling like you're gonna get found out, or people figuring out that you're gonna be fake, and so you're always in the state of panic. And it's also trying to save face, right? Being extra nice so that you don't step on anyone's toes, or you don't, what is it called? You feel like you're always stepping on eggshells. You're walking on eggshells. But what happens is you tend to leak incongruency. So you come across as this super nice person, nice guy, nice girl. But what happens is once in a while you throw out a statement that is very passive aggressive. I actually know someone like this who comes across really nice and is always smiling, but once in a while you'll hear these like weird remarks that it's like very passive aggressive, and so you leak this incongruency. And so what this really comes down to actually overcome this is your nervous system is constantly freaking out. Your nervous system is in a state of panic. I forgot the 2 different types of different states the nervous system can be in. I think it's sympathetic and parasympathetic. Don't quote me on that. But basically your nervous system is freaking out. And so you have to figure out a way to calm down your nervous system. One of the best ways to do it is through breath work. Is like actually take time in that moment where you feel like you have to walk on eggshells, or you feel like someone's gonna find out you're fake, or you have just emotional spilling, or you're in a state of panic. Actually do some breath work. Calm your body down, calm your nervous system down from that fight or flight state. You know, my therapist a long time ago presented to me like a 5-minute breath work, and really there's multiple different breath works that you can do. You know, there's box breathing, which is 1 1 1 1, right? So it's like you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, and you just keep doing that to regulate the breath. There's also the 3 2 what is it? 3 for every 3 seconds of breath, holding it for 9. So 3-3-2 method, or sorry, 1-3-2 method. And so what it means is for every 1 second of breath that you hold in, you hold it for a multiplier of 3 seconds, and you let go for a multiplier of 2. So let's say you hold your breath for 3 seconds. That means you're going to or you breathe in for 3 seconds, you're gonna hold it for 9, and then you let it out for 6. And so that's another way of doing breath work. There's also the 4-7-8 method. So bring your breath in for 4, hold it for 7, let go for 8, or the other way around. So multiple different ways of doing breath work, box breathing, 1-3-2 method, 4-7-8. Just figure out what works for you. There's a lot of YouTube channels on breath work. I'm probably going to make some videos on breath work, what I found helpful for me doing some guided breath work. So the point is, for emotional anxiety, that state of panic, you need to calm your body down. So that's number 1. Let's cross that off the list. Number 2 is irrational anxiety. And this usually comes from previous traumas, previous experiences that you've had. And it's really just your brain's way of trying to always not feel those previous traumas, not feel those previous bad experiences that you've had. And is always just kind of assuming failure, thinking that things aren't going to go your way. It's always future pacing. Your mind is always constantly in the future of what bad things could happen because of previous experiences that were traumatic for you. And it's always because of this future pace, right? Let's say, I used to deal with a lot of dating guys because I had a dating program that we run. And basically a lot of them, before they even go up to the girl, they're like, oh, it's not gonna go well. She doesn't look like she's nice. All of these things, they're future pacing the worst case scenario. And then when they go up to that person, what tends to happen is they act weird because they expect the worst case scenario to happen. And then the girl just walks away because she's weirded out. And then there's a confirmation bias. What that means is they tell themselves, see, I told you it wasn't gonna work. See, I told you things were going to go bad. And this is really just I put SFP here, but what that means is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You assume things are gonna go bad, you act as if it's gonna go bad, things do go bad, and you accept it and go, I knew it was gonna happen. And so the way to actually overcome this is through presence work, mindfulness, right? So doing things like meditation, Vipassana meditation, Anapana meditation. But one of the biggest things, because I used to have this issue, and I still do, my mind ruminates all the time on future conflicts. Because when I was a kid, I grew up in a home that was very violent, and so there was always constant conflicts. And so now my brain is always looking for what future conflicts is going to happen. The biggest thing that really helped me out was hypnotherapy and cognitive behavioral therapy. Having someone who can pinpoint and ask you questions for you to be able to see the patterns of thoughts and behaviors that you regularly have, so that instead of being those thoughts, instead of being those behaviors, you actually become the observer of them. You become the person who is witnessing them, and it actually removes who you truly are from these thoughts. So that is how you overcome this irrational anxiety, is through presence work, but also cognitive behavioral therapy. Or if you can't get a therapist, then self-therapy tools is going to be super, super useful. Boom. All right, let's go on to situational anxiety. Situational anxiety is when you're constantly feeling uncertainty, when you're constantly feeling worry of the future, where you don't have conviction or self-belief in you or your situation. You're always playing to not lose rather than actually playing to win. And also, you're trying to always follow the rules. And look, following the rules is perfect. Rules are there for a reason. Laws are there for a reason. But you're overly careful of not crossing any lines, of not failing a rule or precedent that's set before you. And the reason why this tends to happen is because, a lot of guys that I used to work with were of Indian or Asian or Middle Eastern background, and they grew up in homes where they had toxic shame or guilt. I grew up in a home where I had toxic shame or guilt. I always had, if you're not getting an A+, you are a bad boy. If you're not doing good in school, you are a bad boy. If you're not doing XYZ, meeting these conditions, you are not adequate. And again, this is not your parents' fault. This is just the way that they were raised as well. This is how they figured out was, you know, of course your parents want the best for you, your siblings want the best for you, your guardians want the best for you. But this creates a level of inadequacy where you're always trying to not lose, not fail, play it by the rules. You don't believe in yourself, and it causes this sense of uncertainty and worry, constant worry in your life. And so the only way to overcome this is through three things. Is first of all, start to assertively communicate. Okay? Start to actually communicate what you want, what you feel. Allow yourself to start saying no to things. A lot of people who have shame and guilt, toxic shame and guilt, are always constantly saying yes. You know, my YouTube manager, I told them this all the time. I would ask him, like, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? And he would never say no, even when it was inconvenient for him. Even though it was like late at night and he had to do something, it's like he would always be like, yes, Mo, yes, Mo. And I'm like, dude, it's okay if you say no. I'm not going to get angry. It's okay for you to actually say no more often. And I would urge him all the time, dude, say no more often. Say no 80% of the time. You have to practice the power of saying no and being assertive. The second and third thing would be to always seek discomfort and break norms. So one of the exercises I used to give to a lot of my students is to go out into a public place and yell freedom at the top of your lungs. It's socially embarrassing to do that. It feels like social suicide. But what that does is it gets rid of this playing it by the rules all the time, not losing, always trying to not fail. And it allows yourself to free up a little bit, loosen up a little bit, and allow you to break the norms, not always have to be following those rules or be an A+ student. And one of the ways you can seek discomfort, whoops, it paused. I was saying, one of the ways you can seek discomfort is doing things that, you know, there's programs out there like 75 Hard, right? Which is to build discipline. There's doing cold showers. These are uncomfortable things that are not necessarily within the rules of being a good little boy. And it causes this sense of discomfort, which allows you to become more comfortable with the uncomfortable, which is usually not following the rules, which is taking risk, all of these things. So that is how you overcome situational. And last but not least, behavioral anxiety. Now, this one comes in the form of you always trying to qualify yourself. Always trying to prove yourself to other people that you're good enough, seeking validation, seeking approval from other human beings. And really, this is coming from a place of inadequacy, right? Not feeling like you're good enough and always feeling like you have to overcompensate how you feel. And a lot of times behavioral and situational are very similar, because most of the time when people have toxic shame and guilt, they also feel inadequate about themselves, and so they also feel behavioral. Not always, but that's kind of like the pattern that I've seen. But basically it's you don't feel good enough, and you always have to gain other people's approval or prove yourself to them so that they can give you some sort of validation. The way that you actually overcome this sense of always, am I good enough? Am I good enough? Which causes the sense of anxiety, is by actually being more vulnerable with how you feel. You know, if you feel like you're trying to prove yourself to someone or seek their validation, or you feel like you're overcompensating and being weird, you know, a lot of the dating students that I had would go up to girls and have a weird laugh or have these nervous tics, and they were overcompensating, is actually being vulnerable about it. You know, expressing like, hey, you know, right now I feel like I'm trying to prove myself to you. Right now I feel like, you know, this is not how I usually laugh. This is not how I usually talk. And dropping that guard that you have that is always trying to prove yourself. And because when you do that, now you have done the opposite of overcompensation. You have actually undercompensated yourself. And it allows you to overcome this pattern of overcompensation. So vulnerability is going to be a huge key for this one. The second one is constantly journaling your thoughts. You know, starting to actually have a journal. One of the apps that I use is called iMood Journal, and I'll actually show it to you here. I can track how I feel. I can track, you know, my thoughts. I can take pictures. And it allows me to really just get my thoughts, especially if you are dealing with qualifying, feeling inadequate, out onto paper, which oftentimes fixes the problem in itself. And the way that you want to do this, especially when you're being vulnerable, and I don't know if you guys can see the bottom there, but the framework is TFW. TFW. And what this means is you explain to the person, hey, here's what I'm thinking, here's my thoughts, here's what I'm thinking. F, which is here's my feelings, here's my emotions, here's my feelings. And W, which is here's what I want in this situation, here's what I desire. If you can communicate in this way, here's what I think, here's what I feel, and here's what I want, it allows you to no longer overcompensate and try to prove yourself to other people because you're coming from a very logical framework. Here's what I'm thinking, these are the thoughts that are running through my head. Here's what I feel at this moment, the emotions that I feel, and here's what I want in this situation. Not what you want, not what I'm trying to overcompensate on, but what I want in this situation. And it allows you to, first of all, undercompensate, but also overcome the overcompensating behaviors. So to recap, you have emotional anxiety, which is in your body, state of panic. Rational, which is always future pacing, the worst case scenario. Situational, where you don't feel convinced in yourself, you don't have self-belief. And behavioral, where you're overcompensating. And the ways to overcome this is by breath work, cognitive behavioral therapy, presence, mindfulness, assertiveness and seeking discomfort, and vulnerability and thinking, feeling, wanting communication. So I want you to comment down below what you think your primary or secondary anxiety type is, what you feel on a regular basis, and your plan to actually overcome them based on what I shared. If you have any thoughts or questions in regards to this, just comment it down below. And hopefully you like this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe. And if you want to add me on Facebook or Instagram, links in the description, and we will talk soon. Take care.